Ziegler, the Alpha Dawg, and this is the show we've all been waiting for. Oh my gosh. I posted this on social media about a week, 10 days ago, and it has gone crazy. It's a record audience for my broadcasts anyway. And I don't know what the replays are going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, are you flushing your money down the toilet? I'm talking to dealer principals, general managers, general sales managers, service directors. Whether you're buying uniforms, whether you're buying a service like lead provision, I don't care what you're buying. Are you paying too much? Is it a service you really need? My co-host today, not even a guest. This guy is going to. Sean Welsh, Car Biz Done Better. Hi, big guy.
How you doing, Alpha Dawg? Thanks a lot for having me on, man. I'm blessed to be here, and I take a lot of. I'm humbled by you calling me a co-host. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, what are we going to talk about today? I have prepared absolutely nothing.
All right, leave it up to me. I mean, I can ask you all kinds of questions if you want to get into what we're doing here.
Well, you can interview me or I'll interview you. Starting out, I have often said, if I bought a dealership, I did a speech at Digital Dealer about 5 years ago, 20 things I would do if I bought your dealership, 20 changes I would make. And I wrote an article about that in Auto Dealer Today. I followed it up with an article in the magazine. And one of the things I would do if I bought your dealership is I would immediately, remember, I'm going to buy the corporation, but I'm not going to buy your debts and your obligations. When I buy a dealership, I'm going to fire all the vendors and make them re-interview. And Sean, I had a URL and I've let it expire with GoDaddy. I had it reserved. Find out what otherdealerspaid.com.
I like it.
Yeah, and because TrueCar came in the market and they said, well, find out what other customers paid. I said, well, let's find out what other dealers paid for TrueCar, for example, because I know for a fact that is all over the board. I mean, are you paying too much for cars.com? Are you paying too much for Auto Trader or any of the Cox companies? Are you paying the same amount that a dealer of like size right across town is paying for the same service? What do you think, Sean?
The answer is no. The answer is they're all paying something different. It all depends. A lot of the vendors use the opportunity of legacy contracts, right? So they almost penalize you for being with people longer because they come to you and they say, look, your price is this because of that, because you've been here, you've been doing that. But then you threaten to leave, and it's like, well, if you leave, this price doesn't come back, and pick
Wait a minute.
Pick a side.
Calm down, big boy. Hey, wait a second. Let me tell you something. When you cancel an Auto Trader or a Cars.com or a TrueCar or any of the alleged former lead providers, they all want to tell you now they're advertising sources, which is pure bullcrap. But anyway, they're not advertising sources, and they're certainly not your partners. One thing that really pisses me off is when a vendor says, we're your partner. You're not my partner. You're a service that I hired. You never are going to be my partner. Quit it. You're my partner. I mean, I'm a vendor myself, and I never referred to myself as a dealer's partner.
I get both sides of it. You know what I mean? Like I've had conversations with people where clients call me a partner. If a dealer is going to call me a partner, Jim, I'll be honest with you, I welcome it. I'm humbled by it because that's what I do want to be a partner. I don't sell anything. You see what I mean? Like, I think it's easier for me to say I'm a partner because I'm not sitting here selling you a product, telling you it's something it isn't. My product simply interprets all the shit you spend money on already. So to me, when I ran stores, Jim, I think the best of the best of the best people who we had doing everything with us or for us, we hoped they would be partners. I think at the end of the day, I completely agree with you that most vendors are not partners because it's a paycheck business, especially with the level of turnover, right? So when you deal with a vendor, How often does your rep get turned over? Every 90 days, 120 days? Guess what? Here at my company,
how often do you see them until there's a crisis?
You don't. And even in crisis, let me tell you something. During COVID, I'm the one having to call these vendors going, you guys better get your discounts in line. What's happening right now is real. These dealerships are going to be closed. Get your shit together. You can't keep doing this with people because at the end of the day, they're the ones that we're all here for. We all have the pleasure of working at the service of the dealers. That's it. And if you lose that focus for money, the whole thing goes awry.
Well, the latest buzzword at the recent NADA convention was AI, artificial intelligence. Tell me about AI. Tell me about AI companies. There seems to be like 50 of them out there. I'm doing business with a couple of them. A couple of them have paid me to help them advertise. But tell me about AI, Sean.
I think from where I sit at AI, if you're going to be working with something that you tell me is going to be computer driven and it's going to be all these different modules, then the price to do business better be a lot less, because that means you don't have human overhead cost, and human overhead cost is always going to be the most expensive overhead cost. So if you're going to bring me your AI product, just be sure that we're not going to be talking about something that's going to be ridiculously higher than something that we get from people who are human powered, right? AI is an assistant. Don't look at it as the end all be all. It can help, but in the advertising space, Google's pretty much going down its own AI level. So, do I need an AI bot to go buy AI from Google? I don't think so, but the future will tell us, man.
It's absolutely incredible the number of vendors. We got CRM vendors fighting it out. We've got AI vendors. We've got lead providers. I mean, we've even got uniform companies fighting for your service business. You are barraged by a whole army of vendors. And a good friend of mine, Brett Sutherland. Are you familiar with Brett?
I am. I am. Up until a while ago, we were working with his organization, so I'm very familiar. Yeah.
Well, I've known him since he was a child. I mean, his dad and I had done business 30 years back, and he did a thing this past week, and I didn't watch the entire broadcast, but he did a webinar, and he claims it. Now, he's the CEO of 12 dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a webinar last week that said basically that they've reduced their expenses $2.5 million over 12 stores by eliminating all third-party vendors. Can a dealer eliminate third-party vendors? That's the question.
It all is going to depend how you handle the rest of your business. I think there is a place for them. I don't think you should spend as much as they think you should on them, but I think there's a place, especially now as you get into what's called the Google Vehicle Listing Ads, or VLAs. These third parties are buying them up at scale where necessarily you might not be able to compete on all those. So don't forget, they're taking that traffic and then selling it back to you like it were yours. So that's a whole nother problem. But when we look at it through this lens, I think it depends on where you are.
Back up. Let me rewind that a second.
Yeah.
Rewind.
Yeah.
Okay. They're selling it back to you. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
so the way we've seen it work is that the click will come through, they'll garner it to their page on the site, which then makes it look like it's their traffic to you. Right. So when you look at the analytics on the back end of the provider, you got to be careful they're not front loaded with social media metrics, that they're going out and buying it. Google AdWord traffic, they make it look through the dashboard one traffic source, not necessarily what we find to always be the case. So there's more to look at on the surface. And as Google gets in bed with the biggest people to pay, that's the business they're in, you're going to see more and more of that. But like I said, a lot of it's becoming out of the hands of advertisers at Google anyways. Google's starting to really tell advertisers, look, we got programs that we understand better than anyone. So just let us, give us your money and let us spend it.
So anyway, we're talking about vendors. Are vendors your friends?
I mean, I've got vendors that are friends, right? I've had, when I ran stores, I had vendors that are friends, but no, at the end of the day, I mean, you hope that you can have a business friendship, Jim. I think that's a fair term to use because, I don't want anyone in my dealership or working with me that I don't care for, right? I mean,
how many of your advertising sources, formerly called lead providers, how many of them make their living on vilifying the dealer? How many of them exist because they keep the public with old stereotypes, 20, 30, 40-year-old stereotypes? The dealers are criminals. We're going to cheat them. I mean, look at Carfax. When Carfax first came into market, all their commercials on TV was a car salesman lying to the customer until the little cartoon fox jumped up and ratted his ass out. So they presented themselves to be the dealer's savior. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep. And look, we see it now, right? You see it more in the Carvana space, right? More in the guys who are the digital retailers of the future, or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's, the vilification of car dealers is nothing new. You've been seeing it forever. I've been in the industry since the late 90s. It's all I've seen. It's all I know. And I think that people, when they do that and they vilify the industry, it's because they have no other way to do it, right? I learned really early on in my career, don't burn down other people's houses to build your own. And I think a lot of people, when they don't have something to offer, the only thing they can offer is a clean slate. So they say, look, this is why this is bad, not why I'm good. That's why this is bad. That isn't selling. That's just trying to redirect, a certain energy.
April Simmons on the sidebar, she says Google is the absolute non-vendor partner.
Yeah. And she would know. That woman is dealing with all of these people at once. But at the end of the day, she sees her credit card statement and it doesn't say a vendor. It says Google. And they are able to play the middle. I mean, April will remember this. There was a time before COVID where Google was starting to approach individual dealers for their business, saying, look, we know you have an agency, but what's the point, right? Why have a middleman when you could just come right to Google? And then all of a sudden that just stopped. It just ended. Why?
Yeah. It's amazing. Now Brett Sutherland said he eliminated all of his third-party vendors, and I didn't watch the entire webinar. I'm sure he had something to sell in place of that. But I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that dealers can generate their own traffic. Just look at your Google AdWords and some of the things you can do. Do you absolutely need anybody to provide traffic?
I think, again, I'm going to go back to this. It's not, you got to put geography as the biggest point of discussion here, right? Is depending on where you are. Metro markets, it can be expensive to compete on AdWords, man. I mean, you have to look at those numbers and say, look, what did I get for AdWords in Chicago versus being on AutoTrader? And get the similar traffic to used cars. Plus, not to mention, if you've got a ton of advertising or units that when you need advertised, you should be able to spread that out. And going to multiple vendors,
could SEO and SEM replace third-party vendors?
Jim, not with not what it's going to take financially, man. No, most dealers do not have the stomach for that to go to Google. No, and that's okay. I don't think that we have to be in a place where we say all or nothing. And take it a step further. Inside individual groups like Sutherland, for example, having been privy to their data, some stores absolutely killed it on AutoTrader. Others were a complete disaster. Until you know your cost per lead, cost per VDP, till you know the key metrics, you can't go out and say, yeah, well, eliminate, it'll work. If Brett made that move, he's made it in the last 60 days. I think that's a little bit more of a 6-month discussion I hope he comes back in 6 months and says, hey, as a matter of fact, we've continued to stay off of them, and here's what happened. Here's what the dealerships look like. That's okay. Also, Jim, are we going into a compressed market? Are we already in one? And
subprime is sinking fast. Subprime is disappearing.
Right? Subprime is disappearing, but repos are going through the roof, Jim. So what exactly is going to happen next?
Delinquencies through the roof. All those cars that we sold for too much money in the last couple years, those people, middle-class people, we talked about this in my other show, the Dog Pound. We talked about that yesterday, and then said Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Santander crashed in the subprime market.
crashed. And now you're talking about all these other parts and pieces, right? That if we are in a compressed market, now would be the time to distance yourself from third parties, but do not go removing them until you understand financially how you're going to replace them. That's all that I tell to any of my clients. Have a plan. I have a great client of mine. He's client 002 of Car Biz Done Better. He's still with us. In May 1st, we've celebrated 10 years in business. He's been with us all 10 years. He always threatens to me every, middle of the month. He'll always say, Sean, next month, we're going to get rid of our third parties. This conversation's been going on for 10 years. Over the years, we've chunked them away, and now they're down to a level where we don't have to have that call anymore because it's no longer a financial burden when he looks through his statement. He doesn't go down the line and go, what's this $1,800? Yeah, it used to be $8,000. He's not interested in $1,800 being some make or break deal to his budget. So be within your budget, be within your means. That's going to be the biggest part of all of this.
You can grow or you can die, but you cannot stay where you are. We are entering a very tumultuous time.
Agreed. And now's the time to dig in and understand your data. There's big changes coming to Google via GA4, which will be mandatory come July 1st. If your dealers don't already have it, Jim, they better get it. And it's not that it's like, oh my God, it's going to change the world. It's just that's their new venue. So the old venue you've been looking at for, when did I start that? 05, 06 in Google Analytics? That shit's going away. You got to change. Okay, no problem. Don't be scared. Just be educated. It's not that hard.
You know, I'm not a technological guy. I have to call somebody to load a program in my computer. But dealers and general managers out there, one thing you got to have to understand is I cannot repair a car, but I can drive one. All you have to do is know what the technology does. You've got people that can operate the technology in your behalf. Is that a good statement?
That's more than fair. It's more than fair. But again, Jim, to your point analogy, you do know how to drive a car. So you know what the gas does, you know what the brake does, you know what the radio does, you know what the windows do. All I want to empower dealers, and this is what our service does, is to understand how the gas and advertising works, how the brake works, how the signal works, so that you can go drive your car. You know, that's the whole point of this. I love that analogy, as a matter of fact. So thank you for that.
I can't repair one. I can drive one.
I love it.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that really turned me against a lot of the vendors, and I'm not against all vendors. I'm a vendor myself, for heaven's sake. But what turned me against a lot of the vendors is when they started double crossing the dealers. When all of a sudden they started usurping the data and reselling that data right off of your website to other dealers.
Mm-hmm.
So many of your vendors today are data pirates.
They are. And what do we do to stop them, Jim? How do we know it's happening to us? Do you know what I mean? Like, if most people, so look, I've been in business 10 years. I've been through hundreds of clients, right? In and out, people cancel, whatever. Jim, you would be mind blown to know how many logins I still have that work for dealerships that I worked with 8 years ago that are still listed in my Google Analytics account because they don't know that I still have access to all of their data.
Let me top that story. I got a Chrysler dealer in Detroit Metro that we audited, or I had him audit his DMS. And there were 39 vendors taking information out of his DMS. And he had no idea who these people were. I mean, they were taking data out of the DMS. Some of them were event sales that he had hired 4 years ago. We're still taking data out of the DMS.
Yep. Because once you start the pipeline, it's your job to disconnect it. And dealers don't understand that. They think when they cancel a vendor, they cancel everything that vendor does. That's patently false. And vendors will not proactively come to you and say, hey, by the way, we still have your feed. I don't, because I don't use it. I don't look at it. I don't be a part of it. But that's maybe my own. Maybe I should start telling people.
How many people have pixels on your website?
Oh, Jim, it's insane. And the only way to know who most of them belong to is to just rid your site of all of them and then see who calls you in a week and tells you their data's fucked up. Oh, sorry, Jim. Sorry,
Okay,
Jim.
yeah, you said the bad word. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I got a swear jar over here. My bad. I'm sorry. So when they do that.
Okay.
All right.
Don't use those words on a Ziegler broadcast.
I know.
Slap you around a bit here. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. One thing about it, I tell people get a service called Ghostery.
Yep, great one. What do you mean you're not technologically advanced? I think you're burying the lead in the sand here. I don't. You told me about Wikipedia, how I got to have a page. Now you're dropping Ghostery on me. Come on, man, give yourself credit. You're more technologically advanced than you think.
Dealers, if you really want to see something, subscribe to Ghostery.com. GHOST. Woo, ghost.
TRY.
Ghostery.com. It'll tell you any website on your screen what data is being exported off of that website and who it's being exported to. You're going to be amazed. Number one, the manufacturers are taking data out of your website. Why are you allowing the manufacturers to take data out of your website? And your web provider sold your data to third parties and fourth parties. Understand, your web provider is collecting money for selling data out of your website to somebody else, to your competition. You've got people taking data out of your DMS, event sales. They're using it to run sales for your competition. What do you think about you, dumbass?
All right, you made me feel a little bit better. All right, that's good. Here's the thing about the OEM relationship. A lot of that, Jim, as you know, it's all in the fine print, man. Right? When you sign up for these things, like when you get your new phone and you scroll through and you're like, yeah, just get me to accept so I can turn this damn thing on. You've just given the world access to your phone without knowing, because who's reading the fine print? It's always going to be the same. And the factory is no different. You and I both feel the same way about them. This is ridiculous, the current relationship they're trying to forge with people, but it's where we live right now. So how do we adjust to it?
Okay, Noah Kaufman says, that's a huge risk for FTC safeguard.
And that's a man who would know, Jim. That's a man who would know. He's in the data business. He's all about making sure dealers understand how to keep it clean and safe. So yeah, listen to this, be a part of these, understand the safeguards, what's coming out. It isn't my business, right? So I don't get into safeguards and DMS data tracking, but things like that scare me. How about you, Jim? When you hear FTC, what happens to you?
I had to pay $50,000 a couple of years back to get out of an FTC investigation against me.
So you know it's true then.
We don't mess with FTC. If you want to Google up Jim Ziegler Federal Trade Commission, you can see what happened there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good Google. I'll do that later.
We were building my Wikipedia page with a vendor this past week, and we came across those Google references.
I love the fact that you're building that page. Thank you for letting me know about it. I'm gonna certainly be looking into it.
Fabulous information, says Peter Smith.
Thank you, Peter. We appreciate it. It's easy to do with a man like this. So what else you got for me, Jim? What else are we talking about?
Well, Noah Kaufman on the sidebar. Expand on what you're talking about, and I'll discuss it with Sean as soon as you put it up. Post it, and I'll discuss it. So anyway, one of the things I'm concerned about, we started to talk about your vendors are reselling your information. Now, I nailed a vendor, and I don't know if I want to mention the name of this particular vendor, but I'm going to tell you a vendor that basically redistributes some of your information. But anyway, this vendor, I said, well, wait a second, you are reselling dealer information and dealer data to third parties. And that vendor said to me, well, Jim, it's not that much money.
Wow. Oh, absolution through pricing. Very interesting approach, Jim. Very interesting approach.
It's not that much money. I mean, he admitted it because I had him nailed. And you know, this has cost me tremendously. That FTC thing we just talked about, sticking up for dealers has cost me tremendously through the years. I could be a lot richer if I was a crook, but I have tried to be the dealer advocate in many, many cases where dealers can't speak for themselves. Look at what the manufacturers are doing to the vendors, to the dealers right now.
Yeah, look, Jim, it's why we started this company 10 years ago. I'm a gigantic dealer advocate, having been one for the first half of my career. I knew there had to be a better way to move forward with vendors and dealers, because the whole thing can get spun out of control, both from a dealer perspective and a vendor perspective. And everyone can lay fault in that transition. So we really came in as a middleman to say, hey, hold on. We speak dealer, we speak vendor. Let's go ahead and understand each other's terminology, understand what each other are trying to do. And the advocacy, Jim, let me tell you something. If my advocacy ends up costing me thousands of dollars, part of me says it's going to be worth it, because that's me doing what I know I have passion for. I only want to stand up for the dealer. And even my vendor friends get tired of me. I was texting with one this morning and I'm busting his balls on price. And he goes, Sean, again, I've known you forever. Like, enough with the price. And I'm like, sorry, dude, the client wants what the client wants. And that's always, if you put the client first, should always feel that way.
Okay. Noah came back and he said, all the vendors pulling data from your DMS, if they're not working with you currently, if they're not encrypting that data, then you are at risk of big fines if it gets out.
Wow. See, Jim, I told you this guy is a data source. He's got all kinds of those nuggets in there. This is a problem, people. And so, Jim, can you tell people, did your dealer, did he have to go to his vendor to perform this audit? Was there somewhere he went in his DMS? I mean, this feels like a very important topic. What can you tell us about how your vendor audited that to find those 39?
Well, first of all, you go to your DMS provider, and that they are obligated to give you that information.
Email the DMS provider, email your rep, all the dealers on here, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, I don't care. You need to stop what you're doing after this show's over and go out and take a look and ask this question to your DMS provider, because as Noah put it, there's fines at risk that are your fines. They're not even the vendor's responsibility. So this is an important topic, Jim.
There are data resellers out there, and I've said this in other broadcasts, but I'm going to reiterate it and run it by you. We know that leads have a 3% to an 18% quality. Mm-hmm. Now, Alec Baldwin said there are no bad leads. Remember,
I believe that. Having been a former internet director working leads his whole life, I believe that.
There are bad leads.
No, there are no bad leads. There are bad processes, Jim. That's what I say.
There's leads that have a 3% probability of closing and leads that have an 18% probability of closing. And the people in the industry know this. Say somebody signed up to try to win a free car. They entered a lottery, and there are people that are serving that up to you as leads.
Yep, they are. Those are the GM hand raisers. GM hand raisers, when they go to the auto show and they have everyone fill out the bucket of the auto show, then they come to us dealers and sell us the auto show leads like that.
The auto show leads as if they're real buyers. So that's a 3% lead.
Yep.
Okay. But an 8% lead is an active in-market buyer.
Yep.
Know what I'm saying?
I love it.
Have you ever dealers, I'm talking to you. Pay attention. Talking to you. Dealers, have you ever signed up with a vendor because they weren't producing? Say one of your lead providers, they call themselves advertisers, which is bullshit. Okay. One of your advertising, they're lead providers. Quit it. Okay, one of your lead providers isn't producing.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the quality of the leads, you're going to cancel them. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, they start closing like crazy. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, every lead they send you is a deal. You know why? Because they knowingly started pumping you more of the 18% leads and taking more 3% leads out. They know what the mix is.
Here's the thing. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? With this idea of reselling you your own information or taking you back to, we get leads from Facebook and sell them to you like we're from the third party, but they're actually Facebook leads. Facebook leads, maybe won't be the highest quality, but they're disguised as normal leads, Jim. You've got to be checking. So in our systems, the way we check things is we take the data directly from the provider. We take the data directly from your CRM, and we combine that to show you the full story. We're not here to talk about the attribution word, all this nonsense and garbage. A customer goes to 20 different places. So don't go find the one source. Be in the place that's balanced. Understand the funnel from the top down. That's going to be the key here.
Oh, hey, look at this. Jeff Scherer said it's a lot more than just your DMS. Well, Jeff, expand on that.
Yeah, he's got to be right.
More on the sidebar. I'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah, Jim, you see this comment from Mike on the co-op piece here? I see on my end.
Yeah, Mike Convidas. I know him quite well. Yeah, data is one of the hidden costs of OEM co-ops. Well, first of all, there isn't a co-op program in any manufacturer that isn't downright crooked.
Crooked. It's absolutely. But I love this. I love the middle line here. These programs say they help vet quality of vendors. Mike, these OEMs don't vet anything. Okay, they wouldn't know shine from Shinola. They don't know how to do the job. They need to stay in their lane and produce vehicles.
They don't need to recommend vendors or dealers know the best productive vendors. I've had dealers tell me, well, I know it's a crappy vendor, but I get co-op. You dumbass. What are you thinking?
It's unbelievable. Like, I want to take myself and throw myself on the middle of the showroom and just scream and yell and throw a hissy fit because I don't understand why it is.
Somebody's on the take. And I'm going to almost guess that there are manufacturer executives on the take.
Oh, that's deep. That is deep conspiracy stuff right there, Jim.
Just an opinion. I might be wrong. That's just my opinion. But I think there probably, might be some manufacturer executives on the take with these co-op programs.
All right, look, I don't want any more FTC trouble for you. So let's go ahead and pineapple out of this deal. I learned that word, so I know what that's about. So let's move forward with this. Let me say this about OEM programs. Here's the problem. They don't refresh. You see, no one inspects the results of the current list of vendors on your programs. And why? Why would you? Because you're already getting paid from them and it all works. Here's the thing. A vendor may be good today, good tomorrow. 40 days from now, they may lose half their staff and they turn to garbage. Okay? Ask April Simmons what happens when vendors go ahead and rotate people and you have less than quality people. You cancel contracts quick.
There may be some agency vendors that are co-opt that are using cookie cutter, the same information on every website, same information on every social media post. When Google sees cookie cutter, they disregard you.
And here's the thing. A lot of that stuff is white labeled, Jim. Okay. A lot of these agencies are white labeling the work of other people. So what you need to find out is who's behind, who's powering the agencies. Step aside the agency and go directly to the powering source. That's what's made us, I think, a premier partner in the game. Sorry, Jim, I went back to the partner thing, but at the end of the day, I want to try and help save hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's what it's going to take to inspect that and know that. Well,
anyway, vendors will never be partners in my estimation. I would never, ever call a vendor a partner. And I'm a vendor, but I'm not your partner, and no other vendor is your partner. Excuse me. Stop letting them use that phony terminology. That's ridiculous. I'm your partner. You quit it.
Like I said, Jim, if the dealer says it to me, that's who I get the pleasure to work for. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong.
Okay, here's sure again. Any vendor, partner, advertiser, whatever you call them, handles, touches. PII is responsible to ensure the protection of that data. Decipher that for me, Sean.
The data, he says it at the end, right? The data is growing more legs. The web is just getting bigger with data is the point there. Everyone has a responsibility to do the right thing when they have access to it. And so many people, when they get access to your CRM or DMS, it's not that they do it on purpose, but because it's an open forum, you're going to have so many more issues if you're not inspecting those connections on a regular basis.
Now, dealers, one thing, when you sign a contract with any vendor, there is something on every contract called the EULA agreement. EULA, the End User License Agreement. You want to locate that. It's different wording, but it's in every vendor's contract. What they can do with your data. What they can do. I'm going to tell you what. The Cox companies, I might be misinterpreting it, but it appears to me, and I might be wrong, that they own your data when you sign your agreement. They have the right to share it with all their other companies, resell it, do it, repurpose it, do whatever they want with it.
And you know, the saddest part of that is that particular company won't allow third parties like myself in some areas, not across the country, but in some areas, they won't even allow us to get access to the dealer's data in their dashboards after the dealer tells them to give us access, Jim. And I've said this before. If a dealer tells a vendor to do something, that's a direct order. It wasn't like a, hey, we suggest, we would like you to maybe help. No, I told you to do it, go do it. And these people talk about all this nonsense, all these different areas, these vendors, oh, we can't give access, we don't do that. People, I've got 40 different logins within your company. Don't tell me you don't do it. You might be new here, but this isn't how this works. So vendor turnover is becoming such a problem. Okay.
And I cannot believe the data resale in the market. I mean, how many people get the same lead from 3 different vendors?
All the time, especially if you have sister stores and you have access to that data, you can see that on a grander scale. So I implore you to explore it. If you own multiples of a franchise in an area, that's what I would say. But the data that's new currency, Jim. That's the currency of today moving forward is your data, how you have it, what you can do. Look at Noah. There he is again. You know, free the data. Yeah, that's right. We have to be able to free it. But in order to do it, we've got to know how to own it. You know, for many, many years, most dealers didn't own their Google Analytics or their AdWords accounts. Now, it still exists today, and it's still very sad. But moving forward, you got to make sure you own every piece of the data and understand what it's doing. Don't put your head in the sand when it comes to data. Please don't do that.
No, absolutely. Who does Noah work for? I don't know Noah.
Noah works for the Auto Miner, recently acquired by the Pure Cars company. Great people. Aaron Sheeks and Chris Martinez are the guys behind Auto Miner, to my knowledge, when I met them many years ago, and great company. You should really check in.
I'd love to have Noah on one of my shows one of these days.
Noah Kaufman is in my phone, literally in my cell phone, as Noah, my favorite Canadian. The guy is an unbelievable human being who you would love him on the show. He'd be great.
I'll tell you, I love Canadians. I've been trying to get the government to invade Canada for years.
I've been trying to invade Canada for years.
Everybody watching the broadcast, punch the share button right now and share this, and check in on the sidebar. Make a comment so we know who's out there and know what you're thinking of the broadcast. When we talk about reselling data, are you familiar with the Detroit Trading Company?
Oh my gosh, Jim, that name is, yeah, I used them as a lead provider in 2004, I want to say, at my dealership, when they were one of the first guys out in the Craigslist world. So yeah.
Are they still in business?
I don't have the answer to that. They haven't come across my desk, and I feel like vendors from both coasts, I end up hearing about them first because that's our business. That's what our clients pay us to do, is vet those guys. I don't know, Jim. I don't know the answer.
Okay, well, Detroit Trading Company has a website. I just Googled it up. They're in Auburn Hills, Michigan. And the last I heard, I haven't heard from them lately, but they were aggregating data and reselling leads. I mean, you could sell them leads or buy leads from them. And they were aggregating leads, and the lead providers were buying and selling leads through the Detroit Trading Company.
And they're not lead providers, though, Jim. So I don't understand. Why do they feel it necessary to go get leads if they're not in the lead provision business?
Okay, so how about social media leads?
How about them? What do you, yeah, look, you know what? It's going to come down to process, Jim. You've been doing this a long time. You know, it always comes down to lead process, how you handle things. I've got dealers that will absolutely crush it on Facebook. But do you know why? It's because their people, their salespeople work those direct messages. Not a chat company, not some third-party social media company that's doing nothing. Their people. It's all a part of what dealers need to be doing better at when it comes to organic social media. They all love to pay for it. None of them want to put the work in. But if you really want to get rid of third parties, you truly want to do that, the first place you should look is getting really, really great at organic social. That's step one.
Get good at organic social, SEO, as opposed to a pay-per-click,
all day on social media. You can pay for, there's great paid advertisers, okay? Friends of mine run great companies who do it. But they'll tell you the missing piece to everything is paid media is a steroid. Okay, that's what it does. It's meant to take and boost you to the next level. But if you're not going to the gym and eating right, SEO and organic social, then the page just doesn't do what it can. If you're doing it right, if you're working out and you're eating right, then you do the steroid, sky's the limit. That's what it's going to take. You can't just rely on one without the other.
Okay, first of all, we talked about audit your website. Find out who's pixelated your website, who's got information, data going out of your website. That's one of the things we told you right now.
Yep.
Customers that hit your website, they're already being sold to somebody else. Think about that. A customer that you paid to hit your website, somebody has a pixel on your website exporting that information elsewhere. And you know who sold that information? Your web provider. Your web provider cashed in on selling your information in many cases, in some cases.
And then you take those web providers, right? Then you put them in bed with the OEM. And now we've got a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned, because now you've got multiple entities that don't know anything about the retail side of business that are sharing data that the retail side of the business maybe isn't as well versed in, right? Maybe the data part of things is something that scares dealers, or they just sort of say, look, I have a CRM, I have a DMS, just leave me alone. Well, there's more to understand now. That data has never been more powerful. And I'll say this, for everyone talking about first-party data and where do I get it, how do I have it? If you're a car dealer with more than 5 years history, you are the first-party data. You already own everything you need to own. Stop going out and having someone convince you got to buy it elsewhere. You're already the first-party data provider, and you are providing it out. And I've said this before. You need to pick. What if we start doing this, Jim? For every pixel on the website, you got to send the dealer $10 a month as that vendor. Huh? Why don't the dealer start charging for the outbound data share program? And let's turn this thing on its head.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, please comment on this broadcast if you would. Everybody watching the broadcast, please put something in the comments column so we know you're here. Okay, so we talked about, and share the broadcast. We talked about earlier your DMS, information going out of your DMS. Who's taking information out of your DMS or your CRM? Your CRM has a wealth of information. You know, Mr. Dealer, you want to find some leads? I will bet you most dealerships out there have 100,000 dead leads in your CRM. If you're a big average or bigger than average dealership, you've got 100,000. Well, let's say I'm wrong. Say it's 50,000. You've got 50,000 leads that you paid for. They didn't make a deal with you, but those are still living human beings in your market. They're living, breathing human beings. They're people that tried to buy a car from you at one time. Maybe they bought a car elsewhere. They're service prospects. You've got 50,000 leads in your DMS or your CRM that you wasted money on and you didn't make a deal, but you're not working those people. You're not doing retro advertising. What are you thinking about? You are spending a fortune advertising into the future for strangers.
Again, new acquisition is always going to be more expensive than using what you already have. Okay. This is what I think people need to understand is that anytime I lost a car deal, first thing I did was offer a service discount. Sorry, we couldn't sell you a car. I know you're local. Please come see our service department. They're wonderful people. They're going to offer you 15% off your first service. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. We hope to sell your next car. That's it.
April Simmons, one of the most brilliant women in the car business, she says, question to both of us, what is the number one way dealers are flushing money?
I'm going to let you go first.
One of the biggest ways you're flushing money is hiring the wrong agency. Hiring the wrong marketing agency. And if you have the wrong marketing agency, you're not monitoring them. You're not checking on their spend or expenditure. You're not auditing their bill. Did Google AdWords really charge them that month last month? They charged you that much. Did Google charge them that much? They say, see, because what happens is your agency gives you an estimate at the beginning of the month. But if you don't fulfill that estimate, they're still charging it to you. A lot of agencies are doing that.
So look, I'm gonna go a little off track. To me, the biggest waste of money right now is in turnover, is in having to retrain, is in not paying attention to the actual staff that we already have. But let's take it to marketing. Marketing way, the biggest waste of money right now is spending whatever someone recommends to you without looking at its inspection, without diving in to say, what did I get? Where did I get? How did it move the needle throughout my entire scope of business? And then how can I get better, do more, do less? That's what we're wasting money in trusting what we're hearing to be accurate. Jim, let me ask you something. How can we trust the people responsible for the advertising to tell us it's anything but great? What else would they say, Jim? How many agencies meetings have you been in where someone says, hey, Jim, last month we really sucked at our job and we're going to go ahead and give you a discount on that month. We apologize.
Now, nobody's going to say that. But now let's go back to turnover a second. Now that isn't an agency, but it is where dealers are flushing money.
Yeah.
Why do we have turnover? The reason we have turnover in the car business is not because of money. You can pay people a ton of money and they'll still leave you for a warehouse job.
Mm-hmm.
It's quality of life.
Correct.
When I was a senior manager in dealerships, I shortened the work week by more than 10 hours in every store.
And when was that, Jim? What year was that?
That was 1985.
Okay, 1985, progressive thought process. Now everyone's bitching about the 40-day work week, right? So here you are already reducing it.
That's how I became a millionaire. Quit it because I had progressive thought processes. You know, if you're doing the same old stupid crap everybody else is doing, you're going to keep getting the same old stupid results.
Amen.
You don't think outside the box. You think way outside the box. You know, I was with Dyer and Dyer Volvo when we were the first dealership in the world to do $1 million in 1 month in F&I. A Volvo dealership. We were selling 800 cars a month in a Volvo dealership.
In the 90s, late 80s.
Late 80s. I wasn't even in charge. I was just one of the managers. I was just along for the ride. I mean, I was one of the managers, wasn't even the director. And I grew up in a Camelot environment like that. We had sterile infant rooms with the child care counselors you could park your infant in a sterile infant room with a certified child care counselor while you shopped.
Well, you're waiting to buy a car.
Exactly. I mean, we had all sorts of that we invented. I didn't, but they invented the team concept when I was there. So I came out of progressive environments to answer your question.
Well, I think that progressive thought process is what it takes. When I was running stores, my guys would they'd have a choice on the weekend for your spiff. Do you guys want an extra day off, a 3-day, 4-day weekend, or you want the $500? I don't care what you pick. I got money put aside. 9 times out of 10, my guys always pick the extra day off. Always.
And you got to give them one thing I put into the schedule was one weekend a month off.
Yep.
From Friday at noon till Monday at noon. And when we put that schedule in, we're going a different direction. I thought this broadcast would go, but let's go there.
Let's go.
We're in the rabbit hole. So one thing I did was one weekend a month off, Friday at noon till Monday at noon. And here's the thing, Sean, pay attention. You are not allowed to be in the dealership on your day off, on your weekend off. Because I had guys and women who would double cross their spouse and their children and come in anyway. You can't come in anyway on your weekend off. Well, I got a deal. No, you got a split deal. You're not going to be here.
Yeah, I love it. I love the mandate. You know, not enough people do it. I was raised in an environment in Chicago where if you weren't at work, then you weren't as miserable as everybody else. So what the hell's your problem? Why are you so good to get an extra day off? You know, it was a negative thing to want to spend time elsewhere. And so when I came out of retail into the corporate environment that I lasted only 18 months in because I'm not a corporate guy, what I did learn, though, is that how to like kind of detox away from the environment and idea that 75 hours a week was what needed to be done. My dad always told me to work smarter, not harder. He believed you could get done in 30 what most people took 60 to do. And that was always my thought process. I've always tried to be as efficient with every single thing. I mean, Jim, we got 60 plus stores here at Car Biz right now, and there's only 3 of us. People ask me all the time, how do you do that? Because we have processes to make us efficient so that we know exactly what's going on at every moment. It's not that hard to plan if you take the time to do it and make your people and their lifestyle the priority.
I'm sending Noah a note here on the sidebar. You know, so where else are we way-wasting money? Where else are dealers flushing money away, Sean?
We're flushing money away on social media too. I mean, we can go back to that. We're spending way too much money without looking at the other component of organic. That's what I'll say. For dealers who are great at both, go ahead and spend. But those of you who are not, stop spending so much money on social media. The return is diminished by the lack of ability and intention to engage on the organic side of the platform.
Fantastic. Pay plans are job descriptions, folks. What you pay people to do is what they do, especially in the F&I department.
That's it. Work your pay plan. I mean, where did the phrase come from?
Exactly. What have we not covered? There's got to be something we have left off in this broadcast.
I wanted to get your feedback on, because I gave my feedback on the OEM programs. Besides the whole corruption side of things that we can both agree to, what is it about that relationship that you think is the worst part of it for the dealer right now?
Say that again.
What's the worst part of the relationship between the dealer and the OEM as it relates to co-op, besides the potential for corruption? What is the real reason that relationship is terrible?
Now, the corruption can be in any number of places. I'm going to define that before I move on. It could be the manufacturer. Somebody is corrupt with the manufacturer. It could be the administrator of the co-op program. They've got these third-party administrators between you and the. What is that all about?
Right.
Why the manufacturers have enough money? Manage your own damn co-op program. You know.
Yes. Take responsibility. If you're going to be involved, and if you're not, get out of the way.
We've got enough money, and they're using these third-party administrators. And I mean, look at the choices they're making. Are they just stupid, hiring crappy vendors, or something going on there? I don't know.
I don't know either, but that's all I ever wonder is, how did this happen? Manufacturers, just call me. I'll help you vet. I've got a whole thing on these guys. We build it out of a dossier of everyone we meet so that we understand their value. Maybe today they're not as great as they could be in a year from now, or vice versa.
Okay, here comes Noah.
Yep.
Okay, we're talking about leads coming in that they're incomplete. You get a lead from Mr. Meoff. You know,
we've all had plenty of leads from him, sir. We've all had plenty of leads from him.
Mr. Meoff.
Yeah, and he's got some weird phone number.
All the Disney characters are buying cars. You know.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, again, not having clean data. If you want to go back to CRM and DMS, Jim, talk about data. you talk about how many records are in there, right? You said 100,000 unsold leads. You know, the problem with that 100,000 is in that 100,000, you probably have incorrect phone numbers and emails or don't have customers merged. Maybe your 100,000 should actually only be 50 because you put in Peter S. Smith and didn't merge him with Peter Sam Smith. And that's the growing issue is you don't even know the power of your data.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, Noah says, cleanse your data.
Cleanse it. Clean it.
And explain cleanse your data.
Take it and make sure, like I just said, that you understand and have all of the variables. You have the correct email. You have the correct vehicle registration. You have the correct phone number. All, as I said to you earlier, remember when you sign up for your new cell phone, all your information's out in the world, okay?
Hire a knowledgeable BDC. You know, most BDCs, excuse me, they work for minimum wage. You can slide a slice of pizza under the door. You know, I mean, get some qualified people in your BDC that can interpret the statistics, that can gather the data, can work intelligently with the vendors.
It's a whole big part. And not only that, but they can work with the customer intelligently and they can be that source of information. Invest in training, invest in the right managers, right? And get the best of the best. Make sure you have a process to train people. They work for minimum wage, but some of them work their butts off, Jim. They give you 110% for minimum wage.
That was meant to be humor.
Yeah.
They work for minimum wage and a free pizza. Yeah.
And that's really, and we think we've done them a service when they're the lifeblood and first impressions of our dealerships in most cases.
No, I am very sympathetic to the plight of BDCs. Trust me.
I love me a good BDC. I think it's great. There's a lot of great people in the space, Jim, who work on it from a training side, from a data side. There's just it's a big part of the business for most dealers.
Fantastic. We have covered a lot. Recap what we've covered so far, Sean. What did you get out of this broadcast?
All right. So what I got out of today is that you're way more technically savvy than you give yourself credit for. All right. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Second, I'm going to say that we've talked a lot about data and understanding your data, not just your marketing data, the analytics that we deal with, but the data of the customer, what you actually own, all of the things that you have paid for to get into your DMS. If you're not careful, can be costing you thousands and hundreds of thousands if you're really not careful. So you said it. I'm gonna reiterate it. Go ask your DMS and your CRM provider who has access to my data. Go do that. Ask the hard questions, not actually that hard, and get the answers. But do yourself a favor. Ask it by email and have yourself a paper trail. Understand exactly what happened and when it happened so that you can keep track of how to keep it clean. And at the end of the day, wasting money, Jim, comes in all different forms. It comes in marketing. It comes in people. It comes in turnover. It comes in bad vendors. But unless you're paying attention, or not a shameless plug, but a real plug, if you don't have someone like me or people that do what I do, make sure you have people who understand it as well or better than you do so they can assist you in making it the best it can be.
Okay. And the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, dealers, general managers, decision makers, if you're a decision maker and you're dealing with these vendors, you need to know exactly what expense is going out. As a dealer or general manager, are you signing every check? Are you authorizing every transaction, every direct transaction, every direct deduction? Are you authorizing all that? Do you even open your own mail? I did a speech not long ago called 20 Things a General Manager Needs to Do Every Week. And it starts out with every single day you're going to meet with a controller and you're going to go over the financial statement, especially the payables, as an executive manager. And see, the problem with most of you, you have the title general manager when you're really just a glorified desk manager. You really don't know your job. Excuse me.
How many of you go back in the fixed operations? You can talk to all my buddies at the fixed op side and tell you they don't see many GMs back there.
No. 90% of general managers came out of the sales organization. I talk to people in fixed ops about that all the time.
And some of the best general managers I've ever met in my life come from the 10% of fixed ops, Jim. That's a fact.
Well, I got to tell you, this has been one heck of a good. Do you know we burned through an hour?
Only do I know that because of this timer in the left corner of my screen, Jim. Without it, I feel like I could keep doing this and wouldn't even have known what it was.
We have blown through an hour. And the other thing is, and I'm going to go a little over an hour and close with this. When you fire one of these vendors, especially the lead provider people, when you fire one of them, they're going to come in and tell you, first of all, you're never going to get this deal again. Then you say, well, you're still fired. Then they're going to bring in one of their heavy guns. They're going to bring in one of their regional office or national office people to close you. And they're going to hammer you. Then they're going to lower the price. I'm going to tell you right now, I have wedged more vendors into lowering the price to the fair market value that other dealers are paying by firing them. Fire a vendor and stay firm on firing them. And don't fall for it. They're going to start talking about attribution. Attribution is crap. The last thing I want you to remember, when they start presenting graphs and figures and charts to you and show, and they want to do a Zoom broadcast with you and show you all their charts and all their figures, remember, Ziegler said this: figures lie when liars figure.
That's a good one, man. It's a good one, and you're not wrong. The only true way to get a discount is to fire someone. That's sad in its own right, but it's the only way. And stand by it and know why you did it, and make sure that the data supports the feeling. You can't have one without the other.
Wave goodbye to the people.
See you, everyone.